The water was like glass that day, a flat, dead calm that should have been a warning. We were 60 miles out, the engine a low drone, just me and old Pete chasing a rumor of a tuna run. The first sign was the smell, a sweet, cloying rot like flowers on a coffin. Then the fog rolled in. Not a natural gray mist, but a shimmering, oily curtain that glowed with a faint greenish light. It clung to the boat, to our skin, and it whispered. It was the faintest sound, like voices from a drowned radio station, but it was my wife's voice, calling my name from just beyond the rail. I saw her then, standing on the water, her nightgown soaked through, her face pale and pleading. She'd been gone 3 years. Cancer took her. But there she was. Pete saw his boy, the one we lost to the rip current off Rockport when he was 10. The things just stood there on the water, beckoning, their mouths moving with those distorted whispers. I nearly went over. I had one leg on the gunnel, tears streaming down my face before Pete snapped out of it and grabbed me. We fell back into the boat, clutching each other, sobbing. We decided to haul the lines and run, get the hell out of that sick light. The winch groaned, and the line came up heavy, too heavy for a tuna. We pulled and strained, and it broke the surface. It wasn't a fish. It was a man, or what was left of one. His skin was gone, dissolved, but his insides were preserved. He was shimmering, coated in that same glowing, oily substance. His eyes were open, milky white, and his mouth was frozen in a silent scream. He was tangled in our lines, a grotesque catch we dragged from the depths. We cut him loose. God help us, we just sliced the line and watched that awful glowing corpse slide back into the black water. We started the engine and gunned it, blind in the fog. The whispers got louder, more desperate, more angry. The figures on the water began to change, their faces twisting into grimaces of hatred. They started to glide toward the boat, not walking but moving with them. We were screaming, covering our ears, praying for it to end. After what felt like hours, we burst into clear air. The stars were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. We sat in silence for a long time, shaking, not daring to look back at the glowing patch of fog receding on the horizon. We didn't speak of it, not then, not ever. We just pointed the bow home and never went that far out again. I still smell that rotten sweetness sometimes in my sleep. The worst part? The VHF radio crackled to life on our way back. Just static, mostly. But through it, a broken voice, a mayday from a freighter that went missing the previous week. The coordinates they garbled were ours, exactly ours. We didn't just see things out there. We sailed right through a graveyard, and the dead there don't rest easy. They just wait in the shimmer for someone to listen. It was supposed to be a simple trawl, a few miles off the canyon's edge. The sonar was going crazy, showing a school so dense and deep it looked like the ocean floor itself was rising. We set the net, a huge mid-water trawl, and hit the hydraulics. The boat immediately listed, the steel cables groaning under a weight I've never felt. My partner, Javier, crossed himself. We'd caught something massive, something wrong. It took us an hour to winch it up, the engine smoking, fearing the cables would snap. When the net broke the surface, we didn't cheer. We fell silent. It wasn't a school of fish. It was a single, pulsating mass of pale, fleshy matter, shot through with throbbing blue veins. It filled the entire net, a grotesque, blind slug the size of a school bus. And it was alive, quivering, undulating with a slow, terrible rhythm. It had no eyes, no mouth, just a smooth, featureless head that tapered to a point. Then the smell hit us, a biological, acidic stench that burned the nostrils and made our eyes water. The thing's surface began to weep a thick, milky slime that dripped onto the deck and sizzled, eating tiny holes into the wood. We were terrified, but there was a horrifying curiosity too. What in God's name had we dragged up from the abyss? Javier, against my shouting,
poked it with a gaff. The moment the hook touched its skin, the thing convulsed. A seam ripped open along its side, not a mouth, just a tear. And from that tear, things began to spill out onto our deck, small, skittering, multi-legged horrors with translucent shells and blind white eyes. They looked like deep-sea isopods, but moved with a terrifying, purposeful speed. They scrambled over the net, over the rail, clicking and scraping towards us. We grabbed fire axes, screaming, hacking at them as they advanced, their shells cracking with wet, awful pops. We knew we couldn't keep it. We couldn't bring this plague back to port. We looked at each other, a shared understanding of pure dread. We hit the release. The net opened, and the colossal, weeping thing slid back into the blackness, taking its nightmare children with it. We hosed the deck down, scrubbed it with bleach, but the sizzling holes remained. So did the smell, a faint, acidic ghost in the wood. We never spoke of it to the authorities. Who would believe us? We said we lost the net on a snag. But I've seen the charts of the deep ocean, the trenches that go down miles. We pulled that thing up from over 2,000 fathoms. What kind of pressure, what kind of darkness creates a thing like that? And what if it wasn't an adult? What if we'd caught just a baby, and its mother is still down there, waiting in the endless night? I don't fish the canyon anymore.
It started with the dolphins. They were playing in our bow wake, as they often do, when they all froze. As one, they turned, looked into the deep blue behind us, and vanished. A minute later, the sonar died. Not malfunctioned, just died, like something sucked all the energy out of it. The water behind the boat went flat, unnaturally so, as if a huge, smooth body was gliding just feet below the surface, canceling out the waves. My skin prickled. We were being followed. I leaned over the stern, trying to peer into the deep. That's when I saw it. A shape, deeper than I thought possible, a vast, darker black against the abyssal plain. It was impossibly long, serpentine, but too thick, too wrong. And it was rising, fast. I stumbled back, yelling for my brother Tom to gun it. The engine roared, but the thing kept pace effortlessly. It wasn't chasing us, it was herding us. Then the bodies came. They popped to the surface in our wake, not decomposed, but perfectly preserved, their faces locked in expressions of pure terror. They wore modern gear, old-timey sailor rags, everything in between. It was a flotilla of the dead, bobbing in our path, a grisly warning. We had to weave through them, their dead eyes tracking our movement. I recognized one, a fisherman who disappeared the previous season. His face was a frozen scream. The thing beneath us finally showed itself. Not all of it, thank God. Just a part. A head the size of a pickup truck broke the surface silently. It wasn't a fish or a whale. It was rough, like pitted stone, with no visible eyes. It had a single vertical slit that ran down its front, a seam that I knew wasn't a mouth. It kept pace with us, this silent, stone-like nightmare, for a full minute before slowly submerging again, leaving us alone with the corpse field. We ran until the fuel was nearly gone. The bodies thinned out, then disappeared. The sea returned to normal. We sat there, adrift, not speaking, just shaking. We'd seen the locker. The old sailors' tales are true. There's something down there that doesn't belong in this world, a thing that collects the lost and the damned. It didn't want to eat us. It was just letting us know we were in its yard. We were just mice it had chosen not to pounce on that day. I still feel it sometimes when I'm on the water, that feeling of something vast and ancient moving right below, watching, waiting to show itself again.
I've been fishing off the coast of Maine for over 30 years, man and boy, and I thought I'd seen everything the Atlantic could throw at a guy. Storms that'd swallow your soul, waves like mountains crashing down, and hauls that could make or break a season. But that night in late October, with the fog rolling in thicker than pea soup, something changed. We were out on my old trawler, the Sally Mae, just me and my deckhand, Joey, a kid fresh out of high school with stars in his eyes about the sea. The wind was howling, but we'd cast our nets anyway, hoping for a good cod run. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the world turned gray, and that's when I first spotted them. Shapes bobbing in the water, not buoys or debris, but something human-like. I rubbed my eyes, figuring it was the exhaustion playing tricks, but Joey saw it too. "Cap, what the hell is that?" he whispered, his voice trembling. We motored closer, the engine chugging against the swells, and there they were, bodies, bloated and pale, floating face up, with eyes wide open, staring at the sky as if pleading for mercy. Not just one or two, but a dozen, maybe more, scattered like discarded dolls. No signs of a wreck, no life vests, nothing. The smell hit us next, that rotten, salty decay that clings to your nostrils and won't let go. I radioed the Coast Guard, but static was all I got back, our equipment fritzing out in the mist. Joey started panicking, saying we should turn back, but I couldn't leave without knowing. As we idled there, one of the bodies twitched, or so I thought, its arm flopping unnaturally against the current. Hallucinations, I told myself, from the cold and the isolation, but deep down, I knew better. The sea was whispering secrets it shouldn't. We decided to haul in the nets early, figuring whatever was out there wasn't worth the risk. But as the winch groaned to life, something heavy fought back. The line strained, snapping taut like guitar strings about to break, and Joey yelled that we'd snagged a big one, maybe a shark or a sunken log. But when we finally pulled it aboard, slimy and thrashing, it wasn't anything from this world. The thing was the size of a small tuna, but its skin shimmered iridescent blue-green like oil on water, and it had tentacles where fins should be, coiling and uncoiling with a mind of their own. Eyes, dozens of them, dotted its body, blinking independently, staring at us with what felt like intelligence, malice even. It let out a screech that pierced the fog, high-pitched and echoing, making my ears ring and my stomach churn. I grabbed a gaff hook, swinging wild, but the creature lashed out, its suckers latching onto my arm, burning through my sleeve like acid. He screamed, blood mixing with seawater on the deck, and I pried it off with my knife, the blade sinking into flesh that felt wrong, too spongy, too alive. We couldn't bring it back. Hell, we didn't want to. I kicked it overboard, watching it sink with a glow that lit up the depths briefly, revealing more shapes below, bodies twisting in unnatural poses as if dancing in the current. The hallucinations kicked in harder then, shadows in the fog forming faces I recognized, old crewmates lost at sea years ago, mouthing silent warnings. Joey was babbling about ghosts, and I wasn't far behind, my mind fracturing under the weight of it all. The ride back to shore was a nightmare. The fog so dense I navigated by instinct alone, the compass spinning like a drunkard. Every wave that slapped the hull sounded like hands clawing at the wood, trying to pull us under. I kept glancing over my shoulder, expecting those bodies to climb aboard, their cold fingers wrapping around my throat. Joey huddled in the cabin, bandaging his arm, muttering prayers under his breath. The burn marks looked like runes etched deep into his skin, and he swore he could feel something moving inside, wriggling toward his heart. I laughed it off at first, but then I felt it too, an itch in my chest, like tiny hooks burrowing in. Hallucinations from the fear, or maybe something the creature left behind. The radio crackled to life sporadically, voices distorted, speaking in tongues I couldn't understand, but one word kept repeating: deeper. As we neared the harbor lights, faint through the mist, A massive shadow passed under the boat, rocking us sideways. I shined the spotlight down, and for a split second I saw it, the creature's kin, larger, its eyes reflecting back like stars in hell. Bodies clung to its form, not dead, but fused, limbs merging into its hide. I gunned the engine, heart pounding, praying we'd make it. Docking felt like salvation, but the terror didn't end there. Joey collapsed on the pier, convulsing, foam at his mouth, and the paramedic said it was exposure, but I knew better. His arm had swollen to twice its size, veins pulsing black under the skin. They took him away, and I haven't seen him since. Rumors say he's in some psych ward, ranting about sea monsters. I tried to report the bodies, but the Coast Guard found nothing. No evidence, just empty ocean. That night, alone in my bunk, the hallucinations returned. Whispers from the walls, shadows slithering across the floor. I dreamed of the creature, pulling me down into the abyss, its tentacles wrapping around my soul. Woke up screaming, sheets soaked in sweat that smelled of brine. Weeks passed, and I stayed off the water, but the sea calls, It's in my blood. One day, I found a scale on my porch, iridescent, like the thing we caught, though I live miles inland. Hallucination, maybe? But my skin itches now, scales forming in patches, hidden under sleeves. I see bodies in every puddle, eyes accusing. The terror is real, gnawing at my sanity. I went back out once, couldn't resist, cast the nets, and pulled up nothing but bones, human bones, picked clean. The creature was waiting. I felt it. Threw it all back, vowing never again. But the hallucinations persist, visions of drowned souls beckoning me deeper.
Out on the Gulf of Mexico, where the water turns from turquoise to ink-black abyss, I've spent my life chasing snapper and grouper, captaining a charter boat for tourists who think fishing's a game. But one sweltering August evening, with the sun bleeding red into the horizon, the game turned on me. My clients had bailed early due to rough seas, leaving me alone with the hum of the engine and the slap of waves. I decided to drop a line anyway, deep trawling for whatever lurked below. As dusk fell, bioluminescent plankton lit up the water like stars fallen to earth. Beautiful at first, hypnotic. Then, amid the glow, I saw them. Silhouettes drifting. Not fish, but forms that looked too familiar. Arms outstretched, legs trailing like seaweed. Bodies, I realized, suspended in the current, their skin pale and glowing faintly, as if infused with the plankton's light. No boat wrecks nearby, no storm to blame, just these ethereal corpses, dozens of them, forming a macabre procession toward deeper water. I leaned over the rail, flashlight beam cutting through the murk, and one turned its head, slow, deliberate, eyes locking on mine, empty sockets filled with that eerie luminescence. Hallucination from the heat, I thought, or solitude playing tricks, but the chill that ran down my spine was real. The air grew heavy, scented with decay masked by salt, and whispers seemed to rise from the waves, indistinct but urgent, like drowned voices begging for release. Reeling in my line felt urgent, but something bit hard, tugged with a force that nearly yanked the rod from my hands. I fought it for what felt like hours, muscles burning, sweat stinging my eyes. When I finally hauled it up, gasping for breath, the thing flopped on deck with a wet thud, unlike any catch I'd known. It resembled an eel, elongated and serpentine, but its body was translucent, organs pulsing visibly inside, glowing with the same light as the plankton. Fins like jagged glass shimmered, and along its length, faces pressed against the skin from within, human faces, distorted in agony, mouths open in silent screams. It writhed, coiling around the deck gear, and when it touched my boot, a jolt shot through me, visions flooding my mind, memories not my own, of shipwrecks and drownings, terror pure and unending.
I couldn't bring this abomination back. No market for nightmares. With a fillet knife, I tried to cut it free, but its flesh regenerated, sealing wounds instantly, and it hissed, a sound like steam escaping hell. Panic set in, hallucinations amplifying, the bodies in the water climbing on board, their glowing forms dripping luminescence that burned like acid. I stomped the creature until it burst, revealing tiny fetal shapes, hybrids of man and monster, squirming briefly before stilling. The boat rocked violently then, as if struck from below, and I glimpsed a larger shadow circling, its glow illuminating a graveyard of sunken vessels below. The whispers grew louder, naming me, accusing me of disturbing the depths. I fired up the engines, throttling full speed toward shore, but the hallucinations pursued, faces in the spray, hands grasping the wheel. My skin tingled where the fluid splashed, veins glowing faintly under the surface, spreading like infection. Hours blurred into eternity, the shore lights mocking me from afar. Arriving at the dock, I collapsed, paramedics chalking it up to dehydration, but the glow in my veins lingered, fading slowly. I burned my clothes, scrubbed my skin raw, but the visions persisted. Bodies floating in my dreams, the creature's offspring burrowing into my thoughts. Months later, I tried fishing again, shallow waters only, but the line went taut with that familiar pull. Cut it loose, heart racing. The sea remembers, and now it glows in my mirror, eyes staring back, not quite mine. The terror is in the unknown depths, what we pull up uninvited. I stay inland now, but at night the whispers call, luminous and insistent. They say ignorance is bliss, but once you've seen the luminous dead, bliss drowns with them.
Fishing the Pacific Northwest from the rugged coasts of Oregon has been my livelihood since I could hold a pole. Crab pots and salmon runs paying the bills, the sea my unforgiving mistress. But on that stormy November dawn, with rain lashing like knives and thunder rumbling distant warnings, she showed her true face. I was solo on my skiff, the Emily Rose, checking traps miles offshore where the continental shelf drops away. Visibility was near zero, waves cresting 10 feet, but I pressed on, stubborn as ever. Through the downpour I spotted debris, driftwood at first glance, but closer it resolved into limbs, torsos, a flotilla of dismembered bodies tumbling in the surf, flesh torn as if by massive jaws. No blood, just pale meat bobbing serenely amid the chaos, faces frozen in mid-scream, eyes milky and vacant. I counted 15 pieces before averting my gaze, bile rising. Hallucinations from the isolation, I rationalized, or carbon monoxide from the engine, but the stench was undeniable, coppery rot cutting through the ozone. Radio static answered my calls, isolation complete. One arm washed against the hull, fingers curling as if to grab hold, and I swear it moved, grasping for life. Hauling a pot felt like routine salvation, but the weight was off, too heavy, resisting with unnatural vigor. When it breached, crabs scattered, revealing the core, a creature entangled in the mesh, bulbous and asymmetrical, like a jellyfish fused with a crustacean. Armored plates shifting colors from gray to crimson. Appendages, too many, ended in hooks that clicked menacingly, and a central maw gaped, lined with teeth spiraling inward, exhaling a fog that smelled of nightmares. It pulsed rhythmically as if breathing, and embedded in its mass were bones, human bones, woven like trophies. I prodded it with a boat hook, and it latched on, pulling me close, its surface rippling to reveal embedded eyes, watching, judging. Visions assaulted me, the body's last moments devoured alive by this thing's kin, screams echoing in my skull. Couldn't bring it ashore, who'd believe?
I hacked at it with an axe, pieces regenerating, fog from its wounds inducing more hallucinations, dismembered parts reassembling on deck, forming grotesque figures that shambled toward me. The storm intensified, waves threatening to swamp me, whispers in the wind mimicking the dead's pleas. I cut the pot loose, the creature sinking with a wail that vibrated my bones. Hallucinations peaked, bodies surrounding the boat, limbs linking to form a net, dragging me under. Limping back to port, I beached the skiff, locals staring at my wild eyes. Doctors said delirium tremens, but I hadn't touched a drop. Scars from the hooks faded, but the whispers lingered, currents in my ears. Ventured out once more, curiosity cursed. Snagged something similar, larger. Released it quick, but not before it marked me. A whisper implanted. Return. The sea's currents carry more than water. They carry the damned. I hear them now, constant, pulling me back. Real terror is the whisper that never stops, echoing your name from the deep.